Hello, Sebastian. How are you? Good, thank you. Last day in this class. Yeah, we'll wait a few minutes for others to join us. And so take a look at what we have to do today. And then I'll walk you through that in a few minutes. Hi, David. How are you doing? We'll start in a minute, okay?
Hey, Professor.
Okay.
I was playing around with the I guess that what is this lab, the Minecraft one. But you had to buy Minecraft, right? And again, I didn't find that again for free.
Uh, you can actually play in Raspberry Pi. I'll
Oh,
show
okay.
you. Yeah, you just gotta install it.
Well, I tried fiddling around with it a little more.
Yeah, it's not the latest version, but you will be able to program it at least for the exercise. You can you can use your mouse and stuff to play within it, but if you use other device to play it, then I think you have to download it on the other device. But Raspberry Pi has the version that it's equipped with, or it's used for the Pi. So it's a little slower than your normal system. So you're gonna see, because when it's rendering, it's not as fast. Um, if we were able to get 4 gigs, then that would be better. Hi, Kevin, Claudia.
Oh, okay. I just found it. I just found. I don't know why I missed it in the first time.
Okay, yeah, I'll walk you through that right now.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, yep. Hi, everyone. Hope you're doing okay. Today is the last session we're gonna have in this class. I'm gonna walk you through 2 exercises. Um, so just making sure, reminding everybody, all your completed tasks needs to be submitted by Sunday. I will drill through and get your grades updated as soon as, maybe Monday when I get a chance. But hopefully before that, for those of you who turn in everything. But as a class, I will send the grade in by Monday. So after Monday, you should be able to see the grade in this class. Um, And so if you have any questions or any challenges, you can email me before then, if after the session. And then if you are in the third class, I will also see you there. We will be covering a little bit of Tinkercad so you can design in 3D printing in the third class, CIS833C. And then we will work with Pi0W for some part. And then you will have recommended projects. So mainly in that class, you're going to work on two major projects that you want to build. I will give you a list of projects and possibility that we can use. Now, if you don't want to use the Pi W0, and if you took this class, you can also use the regular Pi, or if you prefer to use Arduino, you can. I know iMake Innovation Center, they do have some additional sensor for you to use if you wanted to expand and build a project with Arduino with more sensors. You can also do that. Okay, so we'll talk about that when we get to the third class. But right now, do you have any questions for me before I start the next two activities? So yesterday we covered Sonic Pi and we touched a little bit on web development, and just to go through and kind of create using HTML, some of the web pages. I ran through the code and I don't understand. Well, I think there might be something missing if you were having challenges with your script. So make sure that you take a look at your steps. Um, and if you have any questions or any concern, we can address that at the end if you like. Okay, so yesterday we worked on this. Right now, what I want to do is I want to run through Minecraft Pi and just to give you a little bit of details about Minecraft Pi. And then after that, we'll talk about designing graphical user interface using Python, using ZeroGUI. And there are other libraries that you can use in Python, but that one is the easiest one to use. So for the Minecraft Pi activity, you will be using just regular Raspberry Pi that you've been using. You will need power cable and also internet connection. If you have it connected to mouse, keyboard, and monitor, you can use it that way, or you can VNC into your Raspberry Pi. So the first thing that we need to do is we are going to run update, and then we are going to run upgrade. And all of these commands need to be run in terminal. Then you are going to need to install Minecraft Pi. Um, if it's already installed, you can, with the update, it will automatically update the applications if there are updates for it. But just in case we don't have it installed, we want to make sure that we install it. And this is the command for that. Okay. So I'm going to stop sharing this side and then I'm going to switch over to my Raspberry Pi so you can at least look at my terminal. Okay. So the first thing that you need to do is you are going to open up your terminal and you just do sudo apt get update. And even though we did this yesterday, sometimes when you have changes to your systems, you want to be able to update it. So before you run any application or install any application, you want to be able to do that. Okay. Then after that, what we're going to do is we are going to, sorry, I had a typo on there. I just caught that right now. We are, for the next line, we are going to do sudo apt get upgrade. And that allows us to make sure that our system is up to date. Okay. And that might take a minute or so, depending on how when you actually updated or upgraded your system. So, if you haven't used it for a while, that's going to take a little bit. And then we are going to make sure that we have our Minecraft Pi. So we would do sudo apt-get install Minecraft -pi. Okay. And I already installed it. So I already have the version, and keep in mind that the version for your Raspberry Pi is not like your regular version that you installed on your computer. It is a little slower, and if you have a Raspberry Pi that has has limited memory, you're gonna find that it's gonna be a lot slower. So on the Pi 3, when I ran this, after I have utilized memory for multiple applications, it became very slow. So in the future, if you are to buy the Pi 4, I recommend, if you can, go for the one with the 4 GB. So that way, when you run application, it's going to be a bit better. But also the processor on the Pi 4 is faster than all the other processor. The Wi-Fi and all the other components on it is better. So as you can see, we just installed Minecraft Pi. And then to call it as an application, you simply just do Minecraft -pi, and it should pop up. Okay, so it's gonna give you some status about, because I ran some code previously, so that's what you see there. But we will make sure that we have all the imports and everything in. So before you start writing your program, you would need to, I'm going to minimize this. You will need to go ahead and click Start Game. And then you can create your new world. You can also, if you had one already, you can just delete it. We can go ahead and create new. Okay. And it's going to take less than a minute to really build your terrain. Okay. And so here we are in Minecraft Pi. And this is usually the favorite activity for the younger students. But what you will do next is you are going to go to, and to get out of it, you're going to hit Tab on your keyboard to release your mouse. Otherwise, it's going to be inside Minecraft. So hit Tab key if you need to release your mouse or your touchpad. Um, then what you're going to do is you are going to click on the Raspberry Pi button, go to Programming, and then you are going to open up idle. If you use the other IDE, you can use Tawny, or you can use Genie, but just remember that sometimes if it needs some kind of library that you're using, make sure that you install them inside the IDE. So we can just simply use idle for this one. And so once you have idle open, you will click New, and then create a new file. Okay, you would go, or Control N. So when you have your new file, you would start writing your script. Okay, I'm going to minimize this just to show you. So I started some of it already. So the first line that you would see in this is going to be from MCIP or MCPI import Minecraft. So this is a library for Minecraft Pi, and it's written in Python. So we want to utilize that library to really create blocks and different things for your game. And so literally you can program your way through Minecraft. And so let me open up Minecraft so you can see. Okay, so this line right here, the first line, allows us to um, use the library for Minecraft Pi, and we're going to bring in Minecraft. Later on, we are going to bring in block from that library so we can create blocks. But for now, step 11 tells you to just import in Minecraft. Okay. Then what we're going to do is we are going to create the object called MC. And by practice, you want to use, you can use any name, but it has to be unique and it cannot be a keyword in Python. So most developer, they would use, a couple letters to really represent that as an object. In the past, we used an actual word, but in this one, we're going to use MC. And when you create an object name, when you construct that, when you choose the name, make sure that it's meaningful to your program, right? So MC is the name of our object. And since we're using Minecraft from the library, you've got to put that there. And then you are going to use the create method from Minecraft. So this is a class. It's a super class that's in that library. And this is a method that you're going to use. So you are going to create an object, okay? And you are going to build that object to access the methods and the properties from that library. And then what we're going to do is the next line after that, we are going to post chat. So Minecraft allows you to send some kind of message or post some kind of message. So in this one, we are going to post a string, and you can use any string you want. But the example I have there is I'm going to use hello CIS833B. You can say hello friends, hello world, uh, welcome to my Minecraft world, whatever you like there. But when you pass it in the parameter here, the string needs to be in quotation marks. And Python can use single or double quotation mark, like what we talked about before. And so with that, we would have hello CIS833B. So at this point, after you have the 3 lines, you can run it. And when you run it, you should see. So let me comment out some of mine here, and so I can run it so you can see. Sorry. Um, I'm going to comment out individual lines so I can undo them down the line when I explain it. Okay. Now, as a complete program that you see there, you would have blocks, and then you would have grass, and then you would have flowers and things like that down the line. So um, we want to just build it by the stages so you can see how you can program through it. Okay. And there are other games that you can use Python with, because there are libraries that are written with Python for those games. So you can definitely use, find the Python library and you can program your way through it. So once I have the 3 lines, the import, the object that I created, and then I want to post some text, I can go ahead and click run. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and save this. And just to see, right, we see the string there, and then we we just simply create the object in the background. Okay, so the message will be posted at first, and if you wanted to see it again, you can just run it again. Okay, and I simply save my file to my home Pi directory. If you wanted to put it on your desktop, you can, so you can run it or anywhere that you can find, that will be okay. Okay. So if we wanted to see that again, we would see the message there, and then eventually it'll disappear. Okay, there you go. So we had posted a message for the chat, then, okay. Now on the next part, what you have is you would have some kind of key functionality, like you be able to use your keyboard to go forward, to go left. So if you press W, that will give you forward. If you press A, that's going to give you left. If you want to move backward, you would then um, press S and so on. So those are some of your basic key, and I um, put, the project that you're working on is, you can find that on the link there for number 14. And then you can find some additional information if you like, but most of the steps I captured that on the assignment. So those are some of the key that you can use on your keyboard to play the game, like fly, that will be double space. Space is going to give you jump, and then tab is going to release your mouse cursor so you can program. Okay. And so now what we want to do is you can use your mouse to navigate through and look at um, your blocks. So there are different types, and you can also create your own block with certain type of material. We're going to go through that next. Okay. So if you press E, you can look at the inventory, what you have on the game, and then you can double tap it. So you can try to fly through the air, you can stop flying, you can release the space bar. So you can start trying out the game itself, and then using a mouse or using your keyboard. Okay, and so you can take a look at how that will be. Any question? So for the next part, what we're going to do is we are going to have a location. So the way that we navigate using programming is we are going to use a method called getPosition. And with that, you should create an object um, that's different than your previous object, because the other object we already utilize it. We are going to utilize it for other things. So the second object that you see for step 15 is POS. And POS is going to be for the position that we are going to be. And the way that we look at 2D game is that we have to take a look at the XYZ coordinates, or the position on the scale of the game on the display. So we first have to create the object. So POS is going to store your actual location, and we can specify what that is using XYZ. Okay. Now, after you have that set up with the object, you can run. And let me click save here, and I will open up my Minecraft. So I restarted running with the program, so it's going to show that. And so all that, simply what we done is we started to build a position with an object. Then we want to be able to teleport, or we want to be able to move to a different position. So in the next line, what you're going to have is you're going to have the XYZ, and And that simply is X represent the horizontal, Y is the vertical, and Z is the diagonal. Um, so that way you can see that, you can represent that in like a 3D. Because in most game, if it's 2D, it will just be X and Y. So we want to really be able to draw our position based on XYZ coordinates, okay, or position. So since we already created the MC from the top, we are going to utilize that particular object, and we are going to have the position set up for XYZ. So again, even when you have another object here called POS, you are going to set up 3 separate objects, which it allows your Raspberry Pi to create memory space. It allocates the memory location to store, right, the value for X, Y, and Z. Okay. Then we are now going to set it. So why don't we just set a value for X, Y, and Z? Why do we actually use some kind of identifier or a name X, Y, Z? It's because when you're using your mouse on the game, it actually store that location that you set on your mouse, right? When you click it to the X, Y, and Z on the grid of the game. Okay. So what we can do next is we are going to have that the MC object, and we want to be able to set the position where X, Y plus 100, and Z. So that is going to transport us to 100 space in the air. So when you want it to be lifted up vertically, you wanted to add the value there. So if you want to go higher, then you can increase the Y plus value. Okay, so now if you want to go horizontally, then you would increase the X value by the certain space. And if we want 100 space up, we would do a Y plus 100. If we want to go across, then we would do X plus, let's say 50. Or if we want to go diagonally, we would then do Z plus a value. So, and then later on, you're going to see that we are going to pass an additional value that's going to be for your data. So once you have the Y plus 100, all that is it's going to lift you up 100 space vertically up in the air. And then that way you will be in the sky, right? You will have the sky view. So I'm going to go ahead and run this. And then I can take a look at my Minecraft. What happened to this? Let me reopen that because it's taking me to okay. So when you want to go up, we're gonna run this back to here. So now you should have the sky view there. Okay. Now, so once you test the module, right, after you save it and run it, you would see that you would see this guiding question. Okay, so with that, we are at this step and we are going to move on to step 18. So if you want to go to another location, you can simply navigate it using Python, right? Or your mouse, but so let me release my mouse and come back to my script here. Okay. And then if I undo this, right, we don't really need to create another object here. So let me backspace that. And then I will go ahead and update my position by using MC set block x plus 1, which is we're going to go horizontally 1 space after we had gone up with y plus 100. And then, so here, what we're going to do is we are going to be in a single block given the set coordinates. Okay. And so we are going to set the block at 1 space from horizontally. And the value that we're setting here is going to be 1 for a single block. Okay. So if you want to put a block in a certain position on the game grid, you want to be able to specify that it's 1 block and it's 1 space horizontally, and then you still have to include Y and Z. Okay, so here for this part, what we're going to do, sorry, I forgot that that's an object for set block. We want to update our for our set block, and the first one we are going to do, we're going to do 1 block, this one. Okay, so I'm going to run this. And then I will go to my Minecraft. Okay. So once you see that you can set a single block, then you can do 2 blocks and so on. Now, it will be default to the type of block that the game is provided, but you can also create other form of blocks. So the parameter that you see here, right? We already talked about X, Y, and Z. It's really gonna set that on the grid of the game where that is visibly for us to see. And the fourth parameter that you see in the parenthesis there is the ID. So X, Y, Z refer to your position in the world. And then when you add any kind of value to X, Y, Z, it's really going to be the space, right, from that particular coordinate. And the ID is just going to be how the number of blocks. So 1 is going to be the stone, 0 is air, 2 is grass, and so on. So the way that they set it up is those ID value represent the type of block that you're using. So when you're using a single block that's a stone, you would put 1 for stone, okay? And then you can try like dirt is 3 or grass is 2. So if you change that up, it would become, whatever the ID for that block would be. So if I put 0, that's just going to be air, right? 2, it would be grass. So here, if I uncomment this, if I have another line that, let's say I want to change this up to 3. Okay, so let me put my Minecraft forward here. And then if we run this, okay, and it brings us down, right? And then it's gonna give you the block that you would need. Okay. Any question? So you don't have to keep all of them. You can change them up, right? Like I can uncomment this. I can comment this out, and then I can add the other one, or I can change this to like 0 and so on. Now, so for the next one, what you want is you want to be able to um, add in certain type of block, okay? So for the type of block that if we wanted to specify like, the ID for the stone for that type of block, you need to make sure that you have the second line added, which is going to be the block. So block comes from the library. That way you can set it to be, wood planks, wool, something of other material than what you would see previously. Okay, so we can set it up where there's certain type of block that we want to be for with certain material. Then what you need to do is you need to add the second line that's going to import in the block part of the library so you can specify the material that you want for that type of block. Okay, so on step 24, it tells you that we can start creating our stone block. Okay, and then we also going to go into the dirt. Okay, so we are going to use the object. We're going to set the block at a certain position. So that's going to be x plus 3. That's 3 spaces onto the XYZ coordinates. Then we are going to use stone.id. Okay, so block.stone.id. That's going to be allowing you to set up your stone block. Now, there are options that I provided on line 25. So it tells you that you can use like wood planks, water stationary, gold ore, gold block, diamond block, etc. So those are optional. Instead of stone, you can use those to check those out. So I'm just gonna change it up, and then we can do hold. Make sure that they're in capitalized letter, otherwise it doesn't work. Okay. So we can go ahead and run this. Oh, I didn't like my gold attribute. Let's say gold block. Yeah, I like that. Okay. So you can click into here to look at your inventory and see what you want to also use, and you can set up the materials that you want for your blocks. Okay. Then after we decided that what kind of blocks, you can do diamond underscore block all in caps. Okay, in 25 it gives you the list. So for the next part, we are going to use dirt. And so what you can do is you can use the name or the integer ID. So you can specify like a variable. You can define a variable like dirt, and you can put in the ID value. So that way it's going to see that, oh, dirt is the variable dirt is going to be 3, which is also dirt, right? So we basically associate the variable to that particular ID value, which represents dirt, okay? So on step 26, you will see that you can utilize a variable dirt, and then you can set your block dirt. Okay, so instead of passing that fourth parameter, you would then use a variable to be able to pass it, because normally that would be a number. Okay, and so here you specify dirt as a variable is equal to 3. That integer value is then being replaced with the variable name. So you don't have to use an integer there. If you use a variable and define the value, the integer value, you can pass it as a variable there. Okay. Then we're going to go ahead and run it again. So every time that you test with a new line or a couple of lines, you can go and check your game. Okay. So as you can see, I previously had a goal block, and then you can navigate and see if things happen on your game. Okay. Let's tap that out. Then what if I wanted to have it a wool block right here? Okay, so let's change this to x plus, let's say 4, and y plus 1 for y and z. Okay, and then we're going to make a wool block next. So in your assignment, it shows you that you can create a variable called wool, and wool is the value for wool, right, is 35. So the optional parameter here, you can use the optional to do the set block, but you don't have to. So you can add in a fifth parameter, 1, and 1 would be, where we would set for a certain color. So if you don't have anything here, instead of 1, if let's say we take out 1, then what we would have is it will just default to the color that it comes with. But if you want to set the value here, that will give you the orange wool color. And so if you want to know a little bit more about, what kind of color, what kind of things that you're using, I suggest that you take a look at the library that you're using, and the tutorial that comes with it. So usually for almost all Python library, they're very clear about what you need to use and how you would get started. So you would want to be able to check that out. So expanding from this activity, right? If you wanted to learn more and make it more interesting, you would want to add more stuff to it. Okay. So the colors are magenta, light blue, and yellow. So let's say if I wanted to use 2, that will make it magenta, right? So let's run this now. And then check out our Minecraft. Okay. And then you can also set your block with. So as you can see, I have a magenta block that's wool. And then next to it, I had the gold block that we previously worked on. You can, you can set whatever that you like there, the color. Okay. You can try to also change some of your block. So the properties are listed on step 29. So if you wanted to make, you know, your block having, different type of property, you can use like wood, which can be oak, spruce, birch, grass, etc. by modifying your script. Okay. So now what we can do is, let me tap this out. What we can do is we would then check, and we would want to be able to, sorry, my dog's gonna bark. We are gonna be able to set our block. We're gonna be able to set our block with the stone. Okay, so after the wool, we can add in those lines. So stone is gonna be equal to 1. Okay, so here we define a variable that's going to store the integer value for our set block. Then we have X, Y, and Z coordinates. We can have it MC, that's our object that we created earlier. And so we would have get position. So if you already did that earlier, you don't have to do that. So as I have it here, I don't really need to add that there if I don't need to. So I'm going to comment this out. Okay. Then I can go ahead and I want to be able to set my block, set block, and we can do X plus 1, Y plus 1, and then Z plus 1. So that will be your coordinates. And then we can also have Y plus 11, Z plus 11, and then we will pass stone. Let me move them without the space. So it's a little cleaner. So instead of putting the 1 here, I can put in stone as I declare that stone. Okay. So we can go ahead and run. And then check out our Minecraft. I gotta turn around here and move up. Okay. So I have the stone. Now, so after that, what we can do is we can take a look at the result, and then we can modify our script some more. So as you go through it, you can start playing with the blocks now that you know how to set your blocks. You can also change up the material of the block that you want and the position of the block by putting in either the variable or the value that would represent the block material. And then the coordinates, you can add the value, the integer like x plus 1, 2, 3, etc. to really set how where your block needs to be. Okay. And so that way you can see how that's done. Any question? Now, would it be okay to really leave this up here like this? Yeah, you can still create the object and then once but it's just redundant. So you only gonna need to make it once at the top. And then if you recreate it, you can also create other objects to store that particular value example. So either way, if you have your object created at the top, and then you can utilize it throughout, or you can have your object created within how you want to set your block. So for the next part, which is step 32, what we're going to do is we are going to add another from import line. So from time import, and we are going to have it sleep. So we are going to bring in sleep from the time library. Okay. We already have the MC created for Minecraft. So if you wanted to, so the next step that we're going to do is we're going to drop flowers where we walk. Okay, so down after I had set my block, I can go ahead and say MC is equal to Minecraft dot create. Actually, yeah, that's fine. Okay, so we're using the create method. And so if you want to comment to all of these before that, you can. So you can actually see that and then flower is going to be 38. And we are going to use a while statement. So in Python, it's pretty straightforward. You can say while it's true, this is going to be infinite, right? We're going to have X, Y, and Z is going to be equal to, it's going to be the object position, okay? Then we are going to set the block X, Y, and Z to be flower. Okay, that's your data part. And then we're going to have it sleep, which is going to be pause, 0.1 of a second. Okay, so it's going to execute this while loop. And with that, we are going to move and it's going to spread flower. Wait, let me see. I have it. Sorry, uppercase there. So on step 32, make sure the Minecraft part is lowercase because we had declare it as Minecraft with a lowercase m. So make sure that that's lowercase here. That's a syntax error on my part. Sorry about that. Attribute create. So fixed Actually, we don't need this line, but if you type this line, make sure it's like this because it's missing its super class, so it's class. Should work now. Yep. So what I did was I fixed it. If you already created up here, you don't really need to create it there. So I'm just going to comment that out. Okay. Okay. So we would then move. Okay. So let's see. Make sure that I don't have any error there. So you can test it and you'll be able to navigate through the game and then be able to see if you can spread flowers and so on. Okay. So to confuse you less, I'm going to go ahead and uncomment or comment these out. Those are we done already. Okay. Okay, so at this point, we just did the flower and then you can run it, right? This is designed to really use it where you would be able to run it, some of it together, and then you can also add more to it. You can also run it by itself, right? Any question? So after we had specified what flower is and to be able to uh, set up the flower with the while loop, okay, as you walk, we're gonna drop grass instead. So we would be able to have the position and then we are going to use a block called, we're going to create an object called this block and that's going to be the block ID and we're going to print out what that block is. Okay, so X, Y, and actually I have that set up here. And then I just have to define this block is going to be mc.get block X, Y, and Z. And then I want to print it. Show, so it's going to show what type of block it is. Okay, so for 34, what we're doing is we declare this block, right? And that's going to be at the position of the X, Y, and Z. So it's going to set up block ID for what this block would be. So if you're using an existing block, let's say a wood, a stone, etc., you would be able to obtain the information and it's going to store it under this block variable. Okay. And then you can also add for 35, you can also add the block beneath that actually show you what you're standing on. So X, Y is, and notice on this one, you're doing Y -1 is because we want to refer to what we're standing on in the game, where Y alone doesn't tell you what's beneath you. So if you're looking at the grid X, Y, Z, right? Lower than Y is going to be Y -1. So that's why we need to pass Y -1 there. And then we're still going to have to include the Z. Okay. Then we want to print block beneath. So if you're standing on grass, it'll tell you grass. Okay. And so if we wanted to know what grass is, right, we need to declare what grass is. So we can add that here. Grass is 2. Then we can say, what if we're standing on grass, then we can have a while loop, while true, X, Y, Z equal MC dot player get position, block beneath, is going to be MC dot get X, Y -1 because we're standing on it, and Z. Then we have a nested if statement, block beneath is grass. Then we need to tap in for this one. Then your set block X, Y, and Z is, we're going to pass flower. Then we're going to have it weight 0.1. Oops. Okay, so we set the block for underneath earlier, and we wanted to display what kind of block it is. Then we add another while loop. We can look at while we're standing there, right? If the block beneath us is grass, it's gonna make it flower. Okay, so that means that it's gonna plant flower onto the grass. And so you can play with the material that you see inside the game itself by declaring the variable of what it is. And then, but remember that we specify the value of that up here, okay? And it needs to be a matching value for the inside the library of the game. Otherwise, it would not work. So the way that we set this up is if we're standing on grass, then it's gonna grow flowers. So it's gonna add flowers there. And you can put it all together in one while loop. I just section it because, you know, you can run them separately the way it's written. There's some statement that it needs to be included. So for this one, you can try it and see if it's gonna grow, it's gonna give you flowers. Okay. And then we can also add something like with the if else statement where we after we have flowers and or we if we have flowers we can convert it to grass. If it's so with the if statement we add flowers when it's grass, and then for 38 when you have the if else statement, if we walk on the grass we will leave the flower behind. So it's going to put grass as you walk, and then it's going to throw the flower behind you. So at this point, it's going to put flower on the y minus 1. Okay, so we can say if block beneath is grass, then, oh, I miss a colon here, don't forget. Then we are going to set the block X, Y, and Z to flower. Actually, I already have that, so I'm just going to add the else statement. MC dot set block is X, Y, and Z minus 1, or Y minus 1, and Z is going to be grass. Okay, so with this, we use an if else statement, right? If beneath us is grass, it's going to put flower. Otherwise, it's going to keep it as grass. So when you go forward, you're going to walk on the grass, and as you walk forward, behind you will be flower. Okay. Any question? So now you know how to put grass underneath as you walk, and then you can also plant flower behind you. So I added the instruction for TNT, okay, and you can try that. So you can set your block as TNT, and then you can blow it up, okay? It will be like this. Let me switch screen share. I took some image. Okay. So when you set that, it's just you're gonna you have to set the block. If you already set the block, you just gotta change that to TNT, and then make sure that you define what TNT is before that. So that block is gonna be on top. So you're gonna have X plus 1, Y plus 1, Z plus 1, and so on. And then if you want to increase that to make it taller, you would do 11, 20, or make it a lot taller. You just increase that value there. Okay. So at this point, what we would do is we would make lots of TNT blocks stack on top of each other. And then once you have that, you would save and run it. Otherwise, if you don't, if you add in the other one, then you would just blow it up. So you can take your weapon and be able to go through it. But there you go. So as you can see, we can use Python to really change how Minecraft is played by just programming, right? And so you would do it stage by stage so you can see the updated script to your game. You can also add lava. So basically that just it's just all of these are using set block method. That's what it is. But before you use that method and use a parameter, you want to make sure that you declare your variable and assign the appropriate integer for the material that you're using for that particular block. Okay. And you always want to have objects. Okay. Yeah, I think this one they need to, it's, well, the way this import statement is written, it's a little bit different. So if you add to your existing one, you would need to, you already have your MC created. You don't have to recreate it. You already have your XYZ created. All you have to do is just add the lava and tell it that it's 10. And then you just need to set your block for your lava. Okay. But in order to get it with water, then you have to add the next part. Okay, so you can have water, lava, gold blocks. We talked about dirt, flower, grass, etc. So in Minecraft, it's pretty straightforward. You just use the set block method um, to really set up, and as long as you have an object. Now, the sleep, the weight in between, you can change this value on, you know, how much lava you want it to flow or how much water you want it to flow. So if you want a lot, then you can increase the value, or slower, then you increase the value. If you want it faster, then you would decrease the value. Okay. And so that's Minecraft Pi. Do you have any question? I hope you have fun with this. I think, looking at how Python can be implemented into a game. We didn't really build the game from scratch, but we can use a library to really, modify how the game should be played. And you do see some of this being used for lots and lots of the open source game that's out there too. Okay. So if you want to explore a little bit further on how to do game development with Raspberry Pi with Python, Pygame is a good library to take a look at. Pygame is abundantly used. There are a lot of tutorial for it. You can do Flappy Birds with Flygame. I think I've written an exercise for that. I just didn't have enough time to really squeeze in too much stuff because this class is really short, and I don't want to give you too much, but there are really great tutorials for you to explore. You can create Pong games. Um, Pong games are written in a lot of different languages outside of just Python. You find them with C sharp, so you can actually put that into Unity and use Unity engine to really, you know, add elements to your game to make it look really cool. Um, so you can take a look at that. Yeah, Unity uses C sharp because it's really aimed to cater to the PC user, the Windows user, um, but you can also write game in other languages, not just that. If you use Java to create game, you can use Cocoa 2D to make game. Cocoa 2D has library and itself is a game engine. I had written tutorial and stuff with Unity and stuff in the past, but um, I never really pursue it as creating a course. I might down the line. But if you don't like Pygame, you can use Kiwi. Kiwi also allows you to use Python to create graphical user interface and other elements to your game. So uh, yeah, there are a lot to explore. I think at RCCD, the way that they teach game design is the design piece of it, how to really use graphics. I think that the needed element to really flourish it is to really program your game and use your graphic to really make the full flash game. And I think UCR has a program for that, and other school like Cal State, they do have program for that. So any question? Okay. So if you want to really explore game development, you should first start looking at game engine and go through the tutorial for game engine. Unity is a good one to take a look at. Um, and then you got Real Engine, which is a little harder. I actually bought the book for Real and I started teaching myself how to use it. Um, I felt like it's a little harder for a beginner to start with Real versus, Unity. But so when you look at like Facebook or some of the other companies that really build like AR and VR type of game, you would see that they use these engine, even open source one, or use Unity to be able to develop some of that. So some of you probably knowledgeable in those areas. Okay. All right. Next, we are going to talk about graphical user interface, and then we'll be done. Okay. There's some pyramid stuff that I didn't touch on, but you can see if you can build pyramids. So you can write a separate script for it, or you can pull it from the GitHub. All right. So the next part, we're going to talk about GUI. And so on exercise 4, if you attempt it, all you need is your Raspberry Pi plug-in with internet connection. Okay. And we are going to use a library. It's called GUI0. I actually like this library more than tk-enter. So there are several libraries that you can use for Python graphical user interface. So when we say graphical user interface, what do we really mean, right? It means that you can create buttons, drop down menu, you know, text box where the user can enter the information, add in pictures and things like that. And Python is commonly chosen for this particular area only because it is friendly for cross platforms. So you can use it on PC, you can use it on Linux, you can use it on Mac OS. So it's, but is it really the only language? No, you can use other languages to write graphical user interface. Java, you can use the library for Java to do that. Swing and FX would be the library for Java. But for Python, I chose this because it's easy. And I've written tutorial and I use tk-enter in my CIS30A class, which is a Python class that's finishing in a couple of weeks. So for this one, all you're gonna need is I'm gonna go ahead and close my Minecraft here on my Raspberry Pi, and then you will then create. Let me save my file. You would then just create a script. So you would need just idle, and you can open up your new file. So let me unshare from this side. And then we will go ahead and open up my GUI and I will walk you through the script. And I'm going to share here. Okay, so the first thing that we need to really do is to really bring in the library and making sure that that library exists. Okay, so before you start, you want to make sure that you have that module. So when we say module in Python, all it is just um, it is a file that you would use. Okay, so if you're not sure, you can always go into your terminal, right? And then um, you can actually download and install it. Now, in idle, it doesn't. If you're using another, I just want to share this. If you're using another IDE like Tani, okay? A lot of my students, they make a mistake of doing this. They would have a the actual module downloaded, the library downloaded, but they don't bring it into the IDE. Okay, so when you're using another IDE, you would need to make sure that you add that particular library. On Raspberry Pi, there's not too much Tutani, but on your regular system, you would have to go and manage your plugins. That's what they call it. And then to be able to add in your plugins. Otherwise, it doesn't work. Okay. Because a lot of the time they just bring it in and they lack to kind of, um, you know, add the plugins for it. Okay. So if you don't have this library, and you can write this using your Windows PC or your Mac OS, right? As long as you put it into your text editor and then save it as a PY, and then you just have to bring in the library. So if you're running it on PC or Mac OS, what you have to do is to make sure that you have the GUI0 library. And so you would do a pip3, right? Install GUI0 um, in your terminal. So pip install will bring it in, and then after that you can import it. So there are two steps always when you're using Python library. Number one, you got to make sure that that library exists. If it doesn't, you have to install it. If it's using for if you use it for Python, likely that you would need to use the pip command. And if you're using Python 3, you just do pip3. Okay. Then after that, you would add in your import statement. Okay, so the first the first import that we're going to do is we are going to do the app. Okay, and I'm going to comment these out. Okay, now we're going to import in, and what we're doing is we're identifying, we're just giving it a name, app, and we're going to use the GUI0. So app. Now, the great thing with this is as you go through, this library has all of the function that you need for different things. Like if you wanted a text box, you can add a text box if you want. So those are called widgets. So every element that you see on your graphical user interface, right, on your OS, they are treated as separate entity as widget that will be added. So a button that you click is a widget, a slide bar is a widget, and so on. Okay. So what you will have to start with is those 3 lines. And on step 3 of exercise 4. Now, I'm going to show you what the final product looks like first, so you can actually see. Okay. So the final product of this exercise is that you are going to have a text box. You're going to have a title that's added to your window. Okay. You're going to have a button. And then with that, with the text box, the user can enter the name, and then it would be able to display the name once that button is clicked. And that's because that button is event driven. It's waiting for me to click a mouse. Once that mouse is clicked, it's gonna see that as an event and it's gonna call a function. Okay. And then this is the slide bar. So when I drag it, it's going to increase the text here. That's also an event. So as I use my mouse to drag it left or right, it's going to change up the text. Then also we have a GIF image. And when you use GUI library for with Python, make sure that you read the documentation because most of them only support a few type of image file. So for GUI0 and TK Enter, they support GIF, and also they support PNG. Okay. Now when you're using JPEG or other type of files, make sure that the library can support your file. So for the GUI 0, on this one, you see that it's able to really use an animated GIF, but not all of them can. And in the case that, if you're using an animated GIF in with the library, it's not able to put together the frame, so you have to really construct a frame. TK Enter is known for that. I actually fix some of the script for TK Enter, so all you have to do is really create a frame and be able to have that frame, because what it's doing is going to take an image and it's going to place it into the frame sequentially, so that way you would see an image as animated, but really they are separate frames. So when you're trying to design graphical user interface and you're using an animated image, if the library doesn't support the animated, the animation behind it, you need to make sure that you set up the frame so that way it can place the frame sequentially onto the display so you can see it as an animation. Okay, it doesn't always come automatically. And so in this one, you would see that I purposely use an animated image so you can see that it is Earth there. And importantly, when you're using an image, make sure that it is in the same folder or directory as your script. So wherever that you save your .py file, your Python file for the GUI, you need to make sure that that image is placed there. And so what I did was I downloaded, right, an image, and I normally use like open source license, so you can find Creative Common license for image. The reason for that is that, there are different level of Creative Common license. Some license you can use it and modify it. Some license you can only use it. So, and if you're trying to pull other people image and if you didn't ask them for permission, and if your product goes into commercialization, and you're trying to commercialize your product, they can come back and sue you for that particular product, whatever profit that you made off of it. So you got to be really careful in how you use the license. So let's say that you need to design an app for your IoT device. You want to make sure that you use a license that is freely available, that if you need to modify it, you can use Creative Commons license that allows modification. Okay. Um, so on this one, I just went to the website, right? I just use Chromium, and then I just put in a search .gif image, and then I would find the one that I want. And here it tells you the dimension, right? The property, how big or small it is. And so if you want something smaller, you can locate something smaller. Okay. And so one of the things that you should do is make sure that you have the image ready. And when after I selected the image, okay, I simply just have it saved. So you just click on it, and then you can right click the image and say save image as, and make sure that it is .gif. So that way, when you write it into your code, it will be the exact name and the file extension that you're using. Okay. Otherwise, you will not, it will throw an error and it will not be able to load the image. That's a common mistake with a lot of students, is that they save their file as something else, either a different name or a different file type, and they try to pull that file in their code and it doesn't work. So make sure that you save the file as what it is specified in your code. Okay? All right. So the first thing that you need is you would need to have an import statement. We are going to import app from GUI 0. And then the second line, right? Just disregard these for now. The second line you're going to have is you're going to have an object called app, and we are going to have a title called hello world. So what does that mean? That title is the title. Let me minimize it. The title here. Okay. It's going to be the title that's going to go on the title bar of that window. And that title is a widget. So actually, I'm sorry. It's just a title for that window. Now, in other library, you would have to say window because window is what would be the widget of that particular library. So different than TK Enter, this particular library actually just have it's simplified. So you don't really have to specify like whether it's a window or frame or etc. Okay. So the second line on step 3 is it's actually just you creating an object, and that object is going to use app, and the parameter that we want to put there is we want to specify what kind of title. Okay. You don't want a GUI that has an untitled title, right? It just looked very unprofessional. So we wanted to put title. And you don't have to use hello world. You can say, whatever the intention of that uh that GUI that you use for. Okay. So after that, we would save and then run it. So you would see a little title pop up saying hello world. So the third line on step 3 is really to use the display method or the function, right? And so that way it would be able to run it. Okay. So in this particular library, display function is used to show your graphical user interface. Okay. And that usually goes to the last line. So then what we're going to do is we are going to add all the widgets in between your object and the display function. All your widgets are going to go there. And as you add the widget, you should also modify your import statement, because we would then need to bring in different elements that from that particular library in order to have certain widget created. Okay. So on step 5, make sure that you pay attention to where you're adding your script. Otherwise, it's not going to work. So it's saying that you need to add it between your object, which is the app, and then the display function. Okay. That will be the end of your program. All right. So in step 5A, you are going to add in welcome to my app, which is a text. Okay. So here, what you see is this is what I added. So it should go underneath the title after, right, my object, because it's then being passed in the parameter for the text widget. So what do I mean by having the text widget? What does it look like? Well, the text widget is, sorry, let me rerun this so you can see it in its entirety. Okay, here is the text. So text is simply show onto the GUI. It's not a text box, it's just text. So if you want some text to be really in the background like that, you can use the text widget. And that's what we did here. Okay, so you can add it under the title. And when we add that, we also need to modify our import statement, because now what you're doing is you're adding in the widget that needs to have, right, that comes from, part of it needs to come from the library, because otherwise you're going to get an error. So if you're using text down here, make sure that you added that at the top. So the rule is looking at what is being used from the library. If it used it down here, make sure that you have it at the top. Okay. Then once we add the text, you can run it to test it out, right? And that should go before the app display. So 5A, I try to capture, I put the script, what it's supposed to be at that stage. And then next, what we're going to do is we are going to create a, we are going to create, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to have you modify it. So let's say that we want to modify our text, right? Welcome to my app. Um, if you wanted to add in the property of your text, like how big of a font you want, you can add in size is the font size. 40 is too large for me. I think I wanted to go with like maybe 20. Okay. And then I can say the font type. So you can say, if it shows you there, that will be Times New Roman. Okay. What if I don't want that? What if I want another type of font? Just make sure that the font is being supported by your system. Otherwise, you won't be able to see it, right? And if you don't have a certain type of font or you're using a really unique font, you just got to make sure that you download it for your system. Otherwise, so considerably, if you design this for other user to use it, you want to be mindful of what kind of font that they have on their system. So stick with some of the traditional common font, like Arial, Times New Roman, and so on. And also think about the audience, right? They might have disability, so you want to make sure that it's visible for them. You don't want to use too crazy of a font where it might look good for you, but people cannot read it. So make sure that that's going to be considered. Okay. And then if you wanted to change up your color of your font, you can say color, and here we are simply going to use color name. So we can pass it with light blue, or if you want red, you can say red. Uh, just letting you know that accessibility wise, red is harder for some people, as they're unable to distinguish red to, or green or certain colors. So you can use other colors. So if you say blue, then it would just be a certain shade of blue, or you can say light blue, dark blue, etc. Okay. Now you can also, instead of the color name, you can use hex code color. Um, so you can refer to the color picker, the color wheel there that I included the link for step 5C. Okay. So let's say I wanted to use brown. Okay. All right. So let's rerun this. Okay, so as you notice, it's now there, right? Larger in the font, and it would be a certain color. So this is the part that we just did. Okay. So you can play with the color and the type of font that you want to show for the text. Then after that, step 6, we are going to use text box. So for text box, with the text box, we would then have to add first in your import statement. So modify your import statement and add text box. Then before our display function, we would then add our text box widget. And I commented each section so you would see it there. So we would add text box widget. Now we would then create another object called name or my name. You can call it whatever you like there as long as it's not a keyword. So my name is, right? That would be text box. And we want to pass the object within. So what will happen is when the user type in their name, right? It's going to then show their name. It's going to take that, whatever that's the user type from the text box, and it's going to include that into the object app. Okay. So here, right, if I do Casey, then the next thing that I need is I would then need to add the button so that way it shows my name. Okay. Because you want it to do something with this. Okay. So then for the next part, what we're going to do is we are going to test it with the text box. And then we're going to add a push button. Now, push button is exactly how it's typed. If you try to put push space button, it will not work because that's what it is coming from the library. So from the library, we then would then add the push button. So we need to make sure that we import that in. Now, if you do import GUI 0, you would bring in everything. So that's a shortcut where you don't have to add each of the element or each of the widget individually by using from import. So in Python, if you just do an import GUI 0 in general, that will be fine. It will bring in everything. Or if you wanted to take pieces of that library and bring it in separate time, you can do that, or a group of it anyway. So here we are going to add in the push button, and as we are going to use it from the library, so make sure that you add that to the import statement. And then after the text widget, you can add in the next line. Okay. And buttons, slider, things that people click and type in, they are event driven. That means that the system is going to wait for the mouse or the keyboard input to update the event. So that way the user can have the interaction with your app or the interface, right? So what we want is we want to have a button, and then so we would then create an object called update text, and that's going to be button. And in here, we need to make sure that we pass the first object, which is app. And in this one, you want to use a command. Okay. And that command is going to be how it's going to be taking in your information. So command, say my name, and then the text display my name. So on the button, it's going to say display my name, or you can say press me to show name, like this. So in this one, we have to specify the command so that way it would know what to do to execute when that button is pressed. Okay. Now with that, we have to define a function, say my name. Okay. And the way I did this is I actually placed it before. So you should define your function closer to the top, and then you just call it from the bottom. And that's just how programming works, right? In C++, you would have to prototype it at the top, define it at the bottom, right? So really, no matter where you have it, as long as you define it before you call it, that should be okay. Or you define it somewhere in your script. So here, because I have command say my name, I have to add in the definition of my function and to be able to use it, right? So now, since the welcome message is used, so instead of the welcome message, it's going to update it with my name, right? Instead of welcome to my app, it's going to change that. It's going to modify that with my name. So you want a variable reassignment here where you would say welcome message, and it's going to have a dot value. It's going to be my name dot value. So what that is it's going to update the value that is stored in the welcome message with my value, my name value. Okay, so you simply reassign that there. Okay, so when I run this, what will happen is, let me rerun it. Then when I type in my name, okay, then I click press to show my name, then it's there. It took away the welcome message and it just add the name. What if I wanted to change it in um actually I'm going to keep it like that. Never mind, I don't want to confuse you. Okay. So what we just did was we have to add a definition for our function which we had used as the command. So when that button is pressed, it's going to execute that function, and all that is it's going to update your name. And it's going to change the welcome message to your name. Okay. So we modify our, make sure that you change your import statement and make sure that you had the push button when you do that. Then you add the function, then you would add the widget. Okay. Then next, we are going to add a slider. And this slider would then be used. Oh, I forgot to mention. Also here, we wanted to add your text box widget again. Okay. Because here we had used my name. You got to define my name. And then you want the button to be also added. So you would do update and command. So next we're going to add the slider. And so the slider, we would then need to add slider to the import statement. And then we are going to first set up the slider with an object called text size. You can call your object anything you want, like SL, whatever, right? You're going to bring down the object app that we created here and put it in your parameter, because that's really, because this slider is going to go onto that window, right? This window. This is the slider. Then we are going to have a command. So anything that's interactive, you got to make sure that you have a command. And with that command, you have to have a function. And you want to have where it starts and where it ends. Okay. we're going to start with font size 10 and we're going to end with the largest font size for us is going to be 80. So when you slide that, it's going to change your text font size from small to large. And you want to use something that would be valid to your app, of course. But for this, I just want to show you that you can slide it so you can see a difference when you slide it instead of just empty slider. Okay. So as we have a command here, we need to make sure that we define a function up here. Okay. So our function is going to be called change text size, and you are going to pass in the slider value. Okay. And where's that slider value from? It's going to be declared here. So welcome message size is going to be slider value. So when you test this, right, I press this, it updates my name. When I slide it, see how it increases the font? And that's the whole point in that whole section. Okay. Sorry about that. So for the after we had added the slider, you can run it into you should be able to see the slider. Now you have a text box that you can type in your name. Once you type in your name, you press the button and then it shows your name, and then you use the slider to change your font size. Okay. Then after that, we're going to go ahead and add our picture. So like I said before, you wanted to go and save a picture and then save that picture into the same folder of your script. Okay, so make sure that this picture, and so my script is in this is called GUI.py. It's in my Py folder inside the home folder. So I put my picture here and I call my picture PC. You can call it pic.gif. Make sure that it is a .gif, not a JPEG. Okay. So you need to find a .gif file and place it in the same folder. So when we're adding picture, we need to make sure that we update our import statement with picture. So just add that there. And then here you are going to declare your object, my pic, and you're going to have picture put in the app object because it's part of that app. And the image you can specify. Now, you can also include its property, like the size of it, etc. But I'm just going to keep it simple. So you want to put the name of your picture into the double quotation mark or a single quotation mark for Python. Otherwise, it doesn't work. Okay. It's going to be exactly the name of how you name it and the file type. Okay, I'm almost done. So after we add the picture, you can save it and run it. And then once you have it saved and run, you should see your picture on there. If it doesn't show your picture, if it's throwing an error, check the location of the picture, check the name of the picture, and check the file type of the picture. It needs to match your code, otherwise it doesn't work. And it needs to be in the same folder as your script. Okay. And so the step that just covered the picture, you can find that on um, or the picture widget option 14. Then in step 15, we are going to do a combo widget. And combo widget is just a drop down menu. So what am I talking about? It's, let me expand this. It's this right here. Okay. So if you want to present the user the option to select, let's say, like could be their background or the state that they live in for when they fill out the addresses, or when they're shopping and you wanted to for them to select like the size of the product that they're getting or the color, etc. So that would be your combo box. Okay. So combo box, just like the other one, we want to add combo to our import statement. And we simply just do a one-liner for the combo box here. So we have an object with the use, I call it user choice. And then I would have combo, it's part of your app. So you're going to pass app. And then the options that you want. So if your app is to sell t-shirts, right? Then you would say, the size of your t-shirt, X small, small, medium, or large. Or if your app is to um, be for user to fill out their form, right? You can have the state or the city as a drop down option, etc. So I just put option 1, 2, 3 generic so you can see. And this is a list in Python. So it needs to go to a list. And you don't only have to have 3, you can have 4, 5, 6, 20, whatever you like. So you just add more options if you want. And the grid of this is going to be 0, 1, I mean 1, 0. Why is that? Because we want it to be here. Okay. And the grid represent where it is, what position it is on your interface. So with that, I wanted to also point out that we want to also include some kind of text information for the user, instruction for the user to select. So following the combo, or even before that, you should have a text widget to tell them what that combo box is, what that drop down menu is going to be, what are they supposed to select. Okay, so I simply just have a text widget and I use choice description as an identifier for that object. And I would have text. Since I already add the text into the import statement, I don't have to re-add it again. And for the text, I just tell the user what they need to select. So I would say select option 1, 2, or 3. And if you put it next to the other grid, you can have it grid 0, 0, because that way it would be adjacent to it. Okay. Because if you put it 1, 0, it will just be on top of it. So you want it to be next to it. And you can align it left as the other one is also aligned left. And then after that, we would then add a checkbox. And this checkbox is just a simple checkbox. And I have here where they would accept certain condition or agreement or acknowledgement, etc. So you can add the checkbox there. Okay. Now, keep in mind that this checkbox doesn't really do much. If you wanted the checkbox to, open up some kind of agreement information or some kind of confirmation that they had agreed to your terms and condition, then you have to write a function, define a function to do that, right? Like write a function to display the text that they had agreed to the term and condition, or do a pop-up, which we're going to do shortly. Okay. So in the script, the next part is going to be checkbox. And when you add that checkbox, you got to make sure that it's added to the import statement at the top. So for checkbox, you simply again create an object, and I just call it accept. You can call it A, you can call it B, whatever you want there. And then in the parameter, since we're using it with our app, we're going to make sure that we pass the object app. And then we want to add in the text of what that checkbox really means. So it will be next to it. Okay. So our text is going to be click to accept the terms and condition. And the grid is going to be 1, 1. And we're going to align it left. So the property of it needs to go inside the parameter. You would pass it as the argument there, and then the so you would declare that object here. Okay. So I have another widget that I had added here. This is the radio buttons. Okay. And the radio buttons are round compared to your drop down menu. It will be like this. So when you do that, it's called a button group. And so when I add that, I need to make sure that I add the button group here in my import statement. And then from there, I would then declare my object, pick choice. And it's a button group. It's used on the app. And then the options, this is a nested list. So it's a list inside a list, because the first list is going to be the option. And then inside this would be each of the option. Now you can also think about, if you know Python, you can also think about implementing a dictionary with that if you have lots and lots of options. Okay, but for this one, because we just have a description and then what it is. Okay, so I have first one, right? So realistically, what can they do for this? Well, they can have an option for, um, when they fill out the form, for maybe how they want the form to be saved, or different things when they're purchasing, or when they're completing, when they're selecting their characters in the game, etc. So I just have first as 1, second as 2, third as 3, just kind of relevant to very generic, right? So here is this property, horizontal is going to be true. So we want it laying it horizontally across, and I wanted the grid. This is pertaining to how it's going to appear onto app, the actual GUI. And then we're also going to align left. So grid 1, 2. It's going to be next to my combo, my checkbox. Okay. And then I added another button, which is a push button. And on this one, I wanted to play with a little pop-up window after you had submit the form. It's going to say thank you. So this push button is going to be next to the radio button, and it's going to show form submitted. Now, you notice that it's using a command, and whenever you see command, there's a function that needs to be defined. So this command is going to execute. So when I push the button, it's going to execute that function. And in that function, it's going to do a little pop-up. And that pop-up in this particular library is called info. It's like an info window. And it's going to use the system window to show a little message. And this message is going to say, thank you. Okay, so I will show you how that's done. So when I click form submitted, it's going to say thank you. Now, when you do this on Windows PC, it's going to look like the Windows PC window. It uses the operating system window. And then I would click OK for it to go away. Okay. So with that, what we added was a function that's going to be executed on command, which is a click from that push button. And everything, all your widget needs to go before the display method call. Okay, and that you would have this. Any question? Okay, so if you do this particular exercise, I want you to output, right? Run it with the completed widgets added, and take a picture of it and include it in your assignments. And this would conclude our last day of Raspberry Pi CIS833B. Do you have any question for me? I'm going to stop recording.